So you may recall in the last video, I was chatting with you about my move to Florida Gulf Coast University and a lot of the psychological challenges that went along with that and the fixation I had on marijuana and the broader sense of regret I feel in reflecting back on that. And you may recall that this is all a part of a broader discussion on, I apologize, the light keeps on flickering, I'm not quite sure why. And I'm hoping that's not going to annoy you too much. And my theory is that it may have something to do with the glare of my glasses. So I will take my glasses off. And so you may recall that this is part of a series of videos specifically discussing the topic of moving someplace better. You may also recall in the last video that I put up on the vlog that I was 2 days from moving from East Windsor, New Jersey to Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Well, here I am in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and I now have my own little space in a walk-in closet that's big enough to be a tiny little vlogging studio. And so I'm going to use it. So I'm thrilled, and I can't begin to tell you the spiritual significance of that. There are a few things that I was hoping I was going to chat with you about. This video is actually not going to be probably nearly as long as other videos because I'm in the process of, we're in the process of moving, right? You know, getting this clean and that clean and making sure you have this in the right spot and that in the right spot and making sure that the bug infestation people come and just make sure, Terminex, to make sure that this place is clear of potential threatening bugs. There was a plethora of spiders here and there crawling about, so that's something we're going to want to put an end to. It's been quite an emotional experience. I was telling you the other day that this was actually, there were quite a lot of emotions going on. There were a few things I wanted to talk to you about here. But I was telling you ultimately that there were a lot of emotions. See, the thing is, with moving, for me, moving has always been symbolic of and representative of certain things. For example, right, when I moved to Union, New Jersey, to attend Kean University, obviously the symbolism there was, first of all, I was no longer a high school student. I was now a college student. There was a sense of, ooh, I have matured. I'm a older young adult. It's this big elevation of sense of self. And the first real major elevation of sense of self that I ever experienced, that, and I suppose the transition from middle school to high school, there was something there, I suppose. So these moves have different kinds of symbolism. One of the things that's so interesting about this move, and in fact, I must write this down so that I don't forget, this move is not only reflective of what I believe is first of all, a well or decently vetted decision of my own free will or my own perceived free will, along with my wife's free will, to move someplace that we feel really reflects who we are, especially with respect to aesthetic values and living in an area where we feel there's a sense of pride that the people in the community appear to have in taking care of it, that just didn't appear to be the case in East Windsor. It would also be the fact that, as I told you, we were in East Windsor for over 7 years and not wanting to be there. So just the pure act of being stuck somewhere so long and wanting to leave for so long, this is symbolic of something huge in that respect. But another way that this is really symbolic or meaningful, we want to talk about that concept of meaning, right? Meaning and significance. So, the utter opposite of nihilism, essentially. And I would go one step further and say it's not only nihilistic, it's also not quite existential. That is to say, it's not merely about a kind of subjective determination of what it means to me. It's, in my opinion, an attempt at an objective reflection on the personal meaning. So it's both objective and personal, as opposed to subjective, as I believe that there's a lot of discussion about people describing things as subjective that is sort of, if not based on feeling, as the term really means, perhaps some people connect it to just a sense of self, individuality, and the factor that plays your personal context and the way that plays into how you think about things. I personally, and I objectively, or in an attempt at objectivity, I highly suspect, and it seems quite probable to me, that you can analyze with a significant amount of objectivity your own context in a way that remains, again, sort of objective and personal and not subjective. That's a little digression there. Anyway, the thought that I'm having here is that indeed this experience of moving from East Windsor to Basking Ridge, what's so significant about it to me is actually a conscious discovery of, or conscious awareness of, or conscious consciousness of, a conscious contemplation of the notion of a move from one place to another as having a profound sense of personal meaning to the person who's moving. My wife and I were talking in the car yesterday as we were driving here, and one of the discussions we were having is the question of, in what way might we, as a mere result of moving from East Windsor to Basking Ridge, be in the process of changing as people? And for me, one of the changes is not only to experience this amazing the amazing feeling of self-expression and a desire in the midst of, and in motion, being in the midst of motion, of fulfillment, for lack of better terms, being actualized, I suppose you could say. And to experience it at such a high intensity, right, that has an impact. Also, we've only been here a few times here in Basking Ridge, the Bernards Basking Ridge area. So a lot of it is unfamiliar to us, and it's very different geographically and perhaps culturally than where we lived in East Windsor in general, and just that whole chunk of central Jersey. It's profoundly different. So there's a lot of stimulation in the mind going on, and the experience of introspecting and grappling with it, to me, is one of the most pleasurable experiences I can recall delving into. So one of the things, to boil it down for you, the bottom line is this experience is not just symbolic of so many things, but it's symbolic of being able to experience the symbolism of a move and the depths of what it means and the aspects of what it means and the depths of those aspects of what it means personally to have moved from one place to another. So I know that was kind of abstract, but I think it's still important and very much a profound element of this move. And just like when you look at a painting and it can induce a lot of emotions in you, so too delving into contemplations with respect to the meaning of this move and the symbolism of this move is very it just like swishes the emotions around, at least for me. I did jot some of them down. One of the things that was strange to me was the being aware of the experience of moving in itself. That feeling of, here we are, we're moving, what does this feel like? Here we are, we're moving, what does this feel like? Here we are, we're moving, what's happening? Like a very literary kind of question almost, in that if the experience were to be narrated in a first-person story, what might I have said about the thoughts that were going through my mind as we were driving and how I was feeling? So one of the biggest feelings to seize me actually was memories of when Ashley and I moved to Oceanside, California, which is actually years after my move to South Beach, which is where I had left off in the last video. And so I don't want to skip ahead and tell you too much about the move to Oceanside without giving you the context that gets you from me moving to South Beach, Miami, to me moving to Oceanside, California, because a lot of things happen between those 2 points. And so the skipping around to me would be illogical. However, I don't know, why did it feel like the move to California? The move to California that Ashley and I took together, that was the first major move I ever made with another person, and with a woman, and with a female romantic interest, with my wife. So there is that. Of course, Ashley wasn't my wife when we moved to Oceanside, but she's the same woman who is now my wife. Actually, this move now is the first move Ashley and I have made as husband and wife, which makes it further actually quite romantic. There's nothing quite like the first time you move with your spouse in the form of being spouses. And so it was reminding me of when we moved for the first time together. Our first real move together was when we moved to Oceanside, California. And I was just thinking about that, and I was, feeling a lot of regret about the kind of person I was at that time and the psychological state I was in at that point in time. And I was just feeling a lot of bad, therefore, as we were driving yesterday, from East Windsor to Basking Ridge in the U-Haul moving, and as I was thinking of Oceanside, and I was thinking if I could go back and be a gentleman instead of how I was then, always so narcissistic and always in a bad mood. To give you an example of two things. So in this move, then, from East Windsor to Basking Ridge, one of the prevalent and dominant themes is not just, romantic husband and wife first move as husband and wife thing, but, furthermore, this thought of, well, this time I really want to do it right. This time I really want to do it right. And I want to be a gentleman. And I want to be really clean. And I want everything to feel really good and easygoing and comfortable. And, that warm and fuzzy feeling. I want a lot of that warm and fuzzy feeling. Perhaps I'm naive to think in life that so much can be so warm and fuzzy all the time. But, obviously there are complications in the process of moving, making sure you put things in the right spots, making sure you have everything, making sure you do everything to make sure that your property is taken care of. Speaking of, there's just so much significance to this move, right? Another thing which I had forgotten to tell you, or I don't remember if I told you. So we now officially own this condo. This is the first time in my life I've ever owned residential property, which is mind-blowing in of itself. I can't even begin to wrap my mind around the significance of that in itself. It's very possible that I need to do a vlog series just on that topic alone. This just scratches the surface. Excuse me. It is important for me to get a drink. So anyway, there are two streams of thought now that I really need to delve into with you. One being a little bit more about the significance of this Basking Ridge move, and the other to shoot back to the story of all the different places I've been and what the meaning of place on a broader scale is to me. So it's funny because one of the things that's hard in life for me is, at what point do I stop and say, okay, I've talked enough about the significance of this move to give you a sort of important present tense as in when I'm recording this video, context, so that the hindsight seems to make more sense, seems more logical. But I've talked enough for today. Especially, I don't like these videos to go too much over 20 minutes if I can help it. Plus, there is just a lot to do today. So, I'd close it by saying that I am astronomically grateful for the opportunity to live here in Basking Ridge. Already, I think 4 neighbors have said hello and introduced themselves and have said how much we're going to like it here and have said they're happy we're here, and just given this vibe of a real sense of friendliness that exists in this community, which wasn't the case in East Windsor. Not that I can remember. I can't remember anyone really going out of their way to introduce themselves to us and say hi and you're gonna like it here or anything like that. I don't remember. Maybe they did. It was several years ago, but I don't remember that. And I don't really remember that anywhere that we lived, if I think back to it, to be honest with you. So I really cannot express enough the immensity of gratitude that I feel to be able to own this property, to co-own it with my wife, to experience this move with my wife and live here with my wife, and to have this space, an official public comment, vlog, recording studio is a dream come true. Absolutely. I just want to be on my knees thanking the Lord, if the Lord exists, which I suspect but can't prove. Anyway, this is to be continued. I look forward to chatting with you a lot more about these things. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.